Hello, hello, Anja Angels. So this is a series that we are starting to help you all feel more informed about your birth. So today we are going to be talking about 3 major tips to help you have an easier birth. So once you reach the 3rd trimester, your mindset begins to shift. You start thinking about, how can I prepare for birth? So today we are going to go over 3 tips that you can employ in your lifestyle to help you prepare for birth so that it can potentially be easier.
That was easy.
So first of all, let's chat about how to make a birth easier and what makes an easy birth. Well, the main reason that most people need interventions during birth is that labor isn't moving fast enough. And this is usually due to hormones. So your body can produce oxytocin naturally, but if your body isn't producing it fast enough, then you may not be having contractions, or rather strong enough contractions. This is usually because when you are giving birth, if you feel really overexcited or anything like that, then your body produces adrenaline as well, which can sort of fight back against that oxytocin. Your body can go into a fight or flight response.
Oh my God, my husband, where you go? Oh snap! You got life insurance!
And as a result, labor moves much slower than you or your provider may wish for. So this is why it's super important to do things that keep your environment really serene. So that's why a lot of people recommend having Christmas lights around your room and string lights and things like that to make sure that you feel really comfortable and serene in that environment. So even for instance, cats typically when they're in labor, they go to a dark, quiet place because it's good for bodies in general to not be too overstimulated when you are giving birth so that you can just almost get into a Zen type of mode so that your body can focus on really producing that oxytocin and pushing your labor along. All right, now let's dive into the tips. So tip number 1 is to drink red raspberry leaf tea. You can pretty much find it at any grocery store near you, and here's why this is so important and the evidence behind it. So research suggests that the optimal time to start drinking red raspberry leaf tea is at around 32 weeks. Now this is because it can potentially help stimulate contractions, and you don't want contractions to start too early in your pregnancy. And even if you take it later on in your pregnancy at around 32 weeks, you may find that you might experience Braxton Hicks because it does stimulate that uterine wall. There are even studies that demonstrate that it can help potentially shorten the 2nd stage of labor, decrease the use of forceps, and reduce the need for interventions during childbirth. The bottom line is that red raspberry leaf tea helps to strengthen your uterine wall. Because your uterus is stronger, then it can allow for you to really have an easier birth and ensure that it can really push that baby out during contractions. So all in all, this goes back to what I was saying in the beginning about how a lot of times intervention is really needed because labor just goes on for too long. But if your uterus is in a strong place and you have that focused mentality and mindfulness, then you can have your body really focus on pushing that baby out and ensuring that your labor is running smoothly. Okay, now let's move on to tip number 2. So tip number 2 is all about making sure that you consume alfalfa regularly. So alfalfa is super high in vitamin K, and overall vitamin K helps with clotting and controls bleeding during your delivery to make sure that you are not having labor complications and overall your birth is easier. And you can even mix it with other foods. I've heard of a lot of moms blending it in smoothies, for instance, to make sure that they get a good solid source. I've also heard of folks boiling it just to make sure that all of the bacteria is gone. So these are all things that you can do to make sure that your alfalfa is safe and you are getting sufficient amounts of vitamin K, because alfalfa is super high in vitamin K, which is really exciting. Alfalfa is also an amazing source of amino acids, which is also super important while you're pregnant. In fact, a quick fun fact is that in the olden days, alfalfa was actually used because it was thought to improve lactation and milk supply processes. So even after you've given birth, you can try to continue this habit because vitamin K going to your baby can help support really healthy baby growth. So a general dosing regimen is around 5 to 10 grams of alfalfa, taken 3 times daily, so you can do up to 15 to 30 grams, and you can try to spread it out, have it in your smoothies, have it on a salad. I even have once had alfalfa in a sandwich with chicken, and I think there was also sweet potatoes in it, and I thought that that was really amazing. So there are lots of ways that you can go about making sure that you're getting a good source of alfalfa.
It's fucking good.
So unlike red raspberry leaf tea, alfalfa is something that you can consume throughout your pregnancy, even earlier on, but especially when you get to your 3rd trimester, this is when you're beginning to really prepare for birth, get in that mindset. So you can have it earlier on, but especially later on is when you would want to focus. All right, now let's move on to the 3rd tip. So the 3rd tip is to consume 6 dates a day, also starting at around 32 weeks of pregnancy. All right, there are many benefits to dates, so let's go through all of them, and especially the most important, why it's relevant to you having an easier birth. Dates have a lot of natural sugars in them, which can help give you a boost of energy, especially if you're feeling a lot of pregnancy fatigue. They're also loaded with fiber, so they can potentially help with pregnancy-related constipation. And they are a great source of folate. And folate is something that a lot of pregnant parents really need to focus on their consumption of because it can greatly reduce birth defects, specifically neural birth defects. So folate is something that's really important. That's why I'll hear a lot of people talk about consuming folate and folic acid regularly, which are actually pretty much the same thing, except that folic acid is a synthetic form of folate. So a lot of people like to just stick to foods with folate rather than taking fully folic acid because it is a more natural form of the same ingredient. So going back to dates, they are also super high in iron, which is also something that is really essential during pregnancy. And lastly, they are a super rich source of potassium, which can help reduce high blood pressure levels. And they're basically an electrolyte mineral. Okay, so now let's get to why dates are so important and relevant to birth. So dates can basically soften your cervix and basically acts as a way of ripening your cervix for labor to make sure that your cervix is able to properly take on birth and can help facilitate it and make sure that everything moves smoothly. So as you may know, throughout birth, your cervix starts pretty hard, but throughout it softens and widens to let that baby go through, especially if you're having a vaginal birth, of course. And basically it becomes more elastic throughout birth. So this is super important. And this is why dates softening your cervix can potentially help lead to an easier birth. Okay, so overall, because of the nutritional benefits of dates and the fact that it can help your cervix soften, the tea is that you should be having 6 dates a day. Starting at around 36 weeks is generally the recommendation. You can potentially start a little bit earlier, but a quick tip is that dates are actually super sweet. I love dates. A lot of people like to put them with peanut butter and they just make for a great snack. So if you're having cravings and looking for something sweet, then dates are definitely a good option.
That was too good. Let's get the bell purr.
Okay, and then I wanted to conclude this by saying that another really amazing tip is that you can just be mindful throughout your pregnancy. So I'm actually going to let the Anja Health head of community, who is also a certified doula and mom to a 3-year-old, Amelia, explain why this mindfulness practice is so important. Here she is.
So another thing that I did when I was pregnant with my daughter is just kind of being mindful about where she was in my body. So feeling around kind of for her butt at night, and if her butt was tending to be more on one side, I wouldn't sleep on that side. I would sleep on the opposite side to kind of help gravity. So it's kind of all of this together, but it can really help just to be mindful of it and to be present in your body and kind of paying attention to how the baby's sitting and how you're sitting yourself. Essentially what we want to do is to maintain good posture, we just have to think about the spaces that we are inclined to recline. So if you're sitting and watching TV, this is a great example. Instead of slouching back and letting your back kind of go into a sway back position into the couch, choose to sit on a birth ball maybe for the first 20 to 30 minutes of the movie, and then maybe lean over the birth ball for a little bit and watch the TV. And then if you do want to sit on the actual couch, like actually lay down. If you struggle to kind of keep that upright position, another thing you can do is kind of sit crisscross applesauce on the couch. So your pelvis is tucked forward instead of slouching back. We basically want to keep like good posture to kind of keep your whole body and all of your ligaments in balance, if you will. And that helps keep the baby from flipping sunny side up, which can cause like labor to be longer, harder, causes that back labor.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming to our quick little mini lesson on 3 different tips that can help you potentially have an easier birth. We are so excited that you are joining us. I am Kathryn. I'm the founder of Anja Health, and I founded it because of my younger brother. He had cerebral palsy. He had a near drowning accident when I was 3 and he was 1. And that gave him cerebral palsy, so he went from being totally healthy to not being able to walk or talk. And then one thing that my parents were always looking into to help treat his cerebral palsy was stem cells from an umbilical cord to help improve his motor and social skills, because fun fact, umbilical cords and placentas can actually do that. And so I have really delved deep into the prenatal space and postpartum space and just birth as a whole, and working with Amelia as a doula on our team has been absolutely amazing in that. So if you are giving birth soon, then definitely consider getting an Anja Health kit. You can get one at anjahealth.com, but we are overall just on a mission to make sure that you have a better and easier birth, and overall make sure that your baby's life and health is always prioritized. So we are here for you. Shout out to our Anja Angels. Bye.